We're missing Mike Santoro.
Oh, you're right. Recording and we are live. And I don't see any attendees, but I still have to make the statements. Oh, I see one. Mr. Malcolm. I would like to inform everyone that the Steamship Authority is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. I'm asking if there's anyone else who's making an audio recording of today's meeting. If so, to please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you're joining by phone, pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. And James Malcolm I'm allowing him to talk. Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you, Mr. Sayers. Just as a note, I tried to log in using the login provided in the meeting notice in the Steamship Authority website, and I couldn't get in. Just as a note.
Okay.
I've just come in via a link that I got from Mr. Cahill. Thank you.
You came in as an attendee, so that should be the same link that we have on the website.
The link that I clicked on the notice that was in the website took me to waiting for the meeting to start page.
Because we had not started the broadcast at that time. Hopefully that's the reason.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, in response to Governor Baker's executive orders concerning the necessity to conduct public meetings in line with social distancing guidelines during the current state of emergency involving the COVID-19 pandemic, all working group members are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendances today would be unreasonably difficult. All working group members are participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app, and all members will be clearly audible to each other. Welcome, everyone. The first item on the agenda is to welcome our new working group member, Stephen Arujo. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you've been appointed by the Tisbury Select Board as their second working group member?
Yes, sir.
Or as their only working group member?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me see. Okay.
Just so I'm aware, Stephen, what's your background? I'm on the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth. I just want to know what sort of
Effective.
ring you're representing.
I am a person that lives in the town of Tisbury. Well, I just moved to West Tisbury. I've been driving truck up and down the road for 30 years with the steamship. And I work for John Keane Excavation on Martha's Vineyard.
So it's sort of three different things that you can be representing, which is useful to get the information both as a resident, a trucker, and someone who works on the island.
Yes, sir.
Great, perfect.
That's terrific. All right, the next item on the agenda is hopefully the approval of the minutes of the working group's October 28th, 2020 meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have to take a roll call vote. And there was discussion at the Steamship Authority board meeting on Monday as to whether Alice and I should be participating as voting members. So I think at this point, Allison and I probably will not vote and see there should be a majority among everyone for the minutes approval anyway. So if I could ask Mr. Cahill.
Cahill, yes.
Mr. Jones.
Jones, yes.
Mr. Morrow.
Morrow, yes.
He's not here. And Mr. Trumbull.
Yes.
And Mr. Arujo, are you going to abstain or are you going to vote yes?
Yes.
Okay. You're entitled to.
Yes, sir.
The next one is the approval of the minutes of the working group's December 9th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Is there a second?
John second.
Okay. All those in favor, Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, aye.
Mr. Jones,
Jones, aye.
Mr. Murrow,
Morrow, I.
Mr. Trumbull,
Nat, yes.
and Mr. Russo.
Russo, yes. Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the update on the Steamship Authority's enforcement of its policy against early arrivals of early morning freight trucks, as well as its enforcement of its other noise mitigation policies. I sent out a chart of the emails we sent out. I'd like to try to share that on my screen for you. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
These are the dates in which someone arrived early and we sent out emails telling them not to arrive early. Generally, there is only one or so on these numbers of days from December 1st through January 20th. We'd previously given you a chart for the days before that. This time, we added some more information so you could see how early people are actually arriving early. And you can see the vast majority of them are only arriving early by 2 minutes. And certainly within the first 5 minutes. The ones who arrive earlier than that are outliers. They are often regular customers who just don't arrive early except that one time. And so that hasn't been a problem so much. There was a cluster of early arrivals for the 6:30 hazardous cargo trip in mid-January by one of our customers. And we emailed them separately and went to a manager in that organization and asked for his assistance in stopping those early arrivals. And they have not arrived early since January 15th. The two who have arrived early since then are from another company. We've also recently had another situation with another company for the 7 o'clock trip, where the early arrival time is 6:30. We seem to have one of their trucks arriving 2 minutes early, several days in a row. And we've emailed a manager in that organization, and he has assured us that he will correct that situation. So my personal opinion, I think we're doing pretty well with this, but we have to stay on top of this and keep on making certain that we bring it to their attention if they do arrive early, so that we can continue to enforce the policy. Are there any comments?
If I have one, or maybe for Allison, one question. Now, are you sending, what is the rule about, are you sending trucks back if they're, for example, 39 minutes early, or you're letting them stay? I'm just trying to get a sense of what your instructions are to the ticket shed.
Yeah, 39 minutes early, we're definitely telling them they need to leave and come back. 5 minutes or less, even 10 minutes, it's kind of a moot point to send them back down the road, because by the time they get back down the road, they're traveling back again, which means more traffic going past your houses. But those are, majority of them are within a few minutes as it is anyway. So, but that 39-minute, I believe, was a third party vendor that never had been down there before. We did send them away. I believe that was the one that you heard really loud at 5:30 in the morning, northbound.
My neighbor and I heard together.
Yes, I believe that's the one in question for the 39-minute early one.
Now, are these arrivals 39 minutes before departure of the boat?
No, before their scheduled arrival time. I mean, half hour prior to. So technically they're over an hour early.
Gotcha.
Got one. There was only one over an hour early.
Yeah.
So
And so look, are you keeping up your record of you've not ever barred a truck from travel because of this?
my memory is that a few years ago, Mark Rosem, when he was in Allison's position, had sent someone away and forwarded the reservation. I don't think we've had need to do that yet, because we have had such good cooperation from all of our freight shippers that these are generally not intentional early arrivals. They're just due to traffic and whether they hit the light green or red at Quissett Road. If we had ever gotten into a situation where we brought this to the attention of a freight shipper and they said, we don't care, it's a state highway, we're going to arrive whenever we want, then we would have to address that situation. I
Mhm.
simply don't think we're going to get there. I think
Well, that'd be
the
good. Huh?
responses have been terrific.
I know you threaten that on paper, but if you don't have to do it, I'm sure everyone's happy.
Correct. We tell people we have that ability so that they know it. I think when we sent the 2 emails to the managers of the freight shippers, and we listed the days that they were early and the amount of time that they were early by, they know that we were keeping track of it. And that by itself is an incentive for them to comply with our policy. We had another instance last week, I think, the other noise mitigation policy we have about backup alarms at the terminal. Nat had emailed us about that at the time, and that I think was a single aberration because one of our customers arrived with a truck that was larger than what they usually have, and they tried to stage him when they had difficulty. But have backup alarms been a problem? They used to be a year or 2 ago, but my memory is that Kevin Smith really worked well in making certain that the trucks don't have to back up in order to be staged.
Allison and I spoke about this last week by phone. Is it better?
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
I feel like I'd be collecting random memories. I'm just not sure. I'd like to think it's better.
Okay.
And then it depends on if we're comparing. You've got your first boat is a 6 a.m. now, so we were. It's when the 5:30 boat starts that we really get those early backup beeping. Let's keep an eye on it. I'm not, I guess, ready to answer.
Right. We are keeping an eye on it. I just want to make sure, because that's the only complaint that I remember receiving about backup alarms since we started the working group.
yeah.
And the problem years ago was when we had one of the freight boats on at 5:30, in which the trucks had to back up onto the boat, and therefore they had to use their backup alarms. And we've changed that so that for the 5:30
killer.
leaving Woods Hole, it's only a drive-through boat.
I definitely remember that. Right.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight. If this is an issue, we need to know about it.
You know, one thing I hope we'll hear from the architects at some point is whether or not your longest trucks that I think are on the 6 a.m. sometimes as well, when they pull into the wall above the ticket shed, they have to, for some reason, they all back up 5 or 6 feet. Steve could probably explain why.
It's mostly when they park against the freight.
Against it, right.
Or the other one.
I just wonder, is that up? It just seems inefficient. They're backing uphill. Some of them, they're loaded, right? Steve, there's probably a good reason why they do that. I wonder if the new configuration would require it. It seems like an odd thing to have trucks doing in general.
My understanding, and actually Kate asked this question of the architects at Monday's board meeting about whether the design of the new terminal will require trucks to back up in order to be staged. That was one of the goals of the new design, is so that they won't be required to back up. And if you remember, I don't know whether you were at that November 2013 community meeting that we had, the first iteration. That was one of the biggest complaints we got at that meeting. And that's why we changed that. And I know the concept design for the new terminal, and now this current design for the new terminal has that in play, so that they should not have to back up in order to be staged. They changed the staging design for the trucks at that point. And
Yeah, it's going to be more of a compact area.
compact area.
Oil shed used to be.
Right. And so they should be able to drive right on the boat.
There's a second backing up that I think still takes place basically against the garbage dumpster,
Right.
or next to it. Is that going to be? I mean, it just seems. I guess I know space is a
No.
premium. It seems like an odd thing to be doing when you're trying to get the boats in a completely different direction.
Correct. That's when they back up against the fence there,
Right.
by the dumpster. No, they won't be staging at that angle, when I looked at the plan the other day, they will be staged that they are facing towards the water as opposed to sideways. So they don't have to back up against the fence. And by the way, those plans, there's going to be some public participation in that, I think at the 30% schematic design level. So that's going to be within a month or two. So you can look at those plans at that time. John, people have to jump in. I'm not good at this.
All right. Well, I will. You know, that previous chart where you looked at the people that were the truckers that were not in compliance. If it's easy, it would be interesting to see what percentage of the people who are truckers that are on time versus the ones that are not for each boat. Because I would assume that we're talking about a higher than a 90%, 95 maybe percent compliance.
I think so. That last chart was over a 50-day period, and we had fewer than 50 trucks that were early. And we carry more than one truck a day. So
Could that data be expressed without doing a lot of work?
you want it on the
Well,
those
maybe a
who are
summary
on-
form.
those who are on the bulk freight list? I'm sure we know, we could probably determine for an early truck whether or not that shipper is on the bulk freight reservation list.
Okay.
That would be easy to get. It would probably be more difficult to compare that with the total number of trucks that don't arrive early. Although we could probably get that information too.
You know, it just seems like if you want to look back a year from now, compliance, what percentage of compliance is it, you know, going up or going down?
Right. We would need numbers. The sense is that the compliance is going up only because
Right.
we have far fewer emails going out. So.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next subject. The update on the emails received at our whtraffic@steamshipauthority.com email address since the working group's last meeting. I sent those out. Allison, I think, has responded to all of them except the one sent to Bob Davis. And that one sent to Bob Davis was generally about the amount of traffic in Woods Hole as opposed to a specific incident. Allison did respond to the truck that was racing through the stoplight at Quissett Road. She responded to the other one about one of our shuttle buses speeding, and she was able to determine that and get back to that person, that Woods Hole resident. And what we have talked about, and this is for these emails, that beginning in February, after we get some of this COVID-19 problems solved, as you know, we have reduced our schedule beginning, I think, January 16th, because what happens is that whenever you have a crew member test positive for COVID, you have to isolate the rest of the crew for a certain period of days, and we have difficulty getting substitute crews. But it's not, and that's what makes the newspapers, but what doesn't make the newspapers is when someone from the parking lot or a shuttle bus driver tests positive or a terminal employee tests positive. And that's what Allison has been dealing with as director of shoreside operations, as well as changing all the reservations because she's also in charge of reservations. That's part of her jurisdiction as well, whenever the schedules get changed. So we have talked, and beginning in February, which is just around the corner, she is going to be going out to the Woods Hole residents who have told us about specific noise issues based upon our customers. That the first one she's tried to talk with, I've forgotten my member, he was the first one who called, was David Proston, who invited her to come over and maybe have a drink and listen to the trucks go by and the jake braking, because he said there was jake braking. She has emailed him several times asking, following up on that, but she hasn't heard back. He may be a seasonal resident for all we know and may not be there at this time. But the idea is that in February, that either Allison or the Woods Hole terminal manager, Rob Towns, we'll go to specific places that are considered to be problem areas by the Woods Hole residents and just assess what's going on. We're following up with the discussion. Doug Jones said at the last meeting that some of these truck drivers may not realize that what they're doing in a certain area may be causing problems. And so we're hoping that if we actually observe these and then educate the drivers as to the issues, that they will correct it. It also gives more connection between Steamship Authority employees and the community, which is always a good thing. And that's what we're planning to do in the next month. I don't know, Nat, whether you'd like to be there when Allison goes out there. Were there anyone else that you would be invited to go out and see what the situation is? We've talked about, Nat and I have talked about the issue of the sound monitor, the decibel monitor. And my choice for, instead of spending $5,000 for a sound monitor, is to have a consistent, an app on each of our cell phones that is the same monitor. And I got a recommendation from a friend, that usually happens, who knows a lecturer at MIT on sound design, who gave the recommendation that one of the best cell phone apps is DEP Pro. And apparently that's used by over there, DB Meter Pro. I've downloaded it or uploaded it, that shows my incompetence, but I've done it to my cell phone and it cost $2.22. And I think that type of app, I don't think we need to have the exact information as to exactly what decibel. It doesn't matter whether it's 92 or 93 decibels. It matters whether it's loud. But that we can always use that same app. It's a consistent application if we all use it, and we can go out and just measure it. And that's what Allison will have when she's out there at all these residents. And it's far less expensive, and I think far more versatile in order to go out and just physically there. Because when Allison is there and uses it, she probably can identify each truck by the noise it makes. She probably knows them after all these years. So
I used to, actually.
We all know that. And so we think that's going to be the most effective way. It's a little bit less efficient than just putting something out, possibly, because it requires personnel. But I think the benefits of having our people out there in the neighborhood and hearing what the neighbors are hearing and talking to the neighbors is going to benefit everybody. So that's what Allison and I had talked about, and we hope to plan beginning now. It's already next week. The other ones that we've discussed, and I don't know, my memory from the hearing is that there is a woman who lives on Locust Street who complained about the noise, invited us down. So she would be a candidate for us to contact in order to go out, even though we haven't received the emails from her recently. And also the manager of the Sands of Time also mentioned that. So these may be good candidates for us to go out to. And I can follow up with Nat. Allison and I can talk to Nat about specific people that are interested. And I know that Jonathan Goldman also has talked about a particular driver who comes down at 9:30 in the morning. And we haven't followed up on that yet. So that would be a good one to go there.
You know, a question, when you go out and do those visits, wouldn't it be helpful if you got somebody from the town of Falmouth that was involved with enforcement just to hear it as well? Whether a community relations person, doesn't have to be a police person, but somebody who's involved in the law enforcement aspects of Falmouth to be present so that they could hear firsthand what the residents are saying.
Can we think about that? I think it's what you want to do, more job owning than threats in a way. That
Oh, it's not meant as a threat. I think, you know, it's just who's going to do the enforcement. And so, you know, if we hear things, that's,
yeah,
it's not to be a threat.
Right. Well, so far we've gotten good results by asking our customers, our freight customers, to change their behavior. The one issue with enforcement is that some of the problems may not violate any speed laws or any noise regulations, that it's simply a matter of courteous driving. And maybe if we go out once and we determine that it's a problem, then we go out a second time with someone from the town in law enforcement. So we don't, that way we don't, I don't want to say waste the time of a law enforcement officer out there if nothing's there. But once we identify a particular problematic situation, at that point, we can then involve someone who has more authority than we do. And that might be better use of their time. And they may be more willing to come back if we already have prejudged that it's a problem situation.
Mhm.
Is Allison in agreement?
Is that
Yeah,
all
I
right?
mean, that's
This is
fine.
tough. This is tough duty. It's dark. It's cold.
Well, dark and cold is not exactly an issue for me right now, so kind of used to that one.
I do hope you'll use that app. Again, this point that we can't manage what we can't measure. Allison, when you and I stood out there the other day and watched one of the Bruno's trucks go by, we each said to each other, well, that sounds noisy. And I think the second one was noisier, but
It wasn't the Brunos, it was a different truck. It
okay,
was a
it's
different
Carol's,
company.
excuse me. Huh?
Nope, it wasn't. It was Packer.
Oh, that was another time, right? I was thinking
It
of
was
that
the same day.
experiment.
There was 3 trucks that
There
went
were
by.
3 trucks, okay.
One Bruno's, one Carol's, and one Packer. And the Packer one was the loudest of the 3.
Now,
I
I'm
remember
going
thinking-
back, I'm just finally
Sorry,
looking at the
notes.
attendees, and I see that Jim Malkin has hand up, but I think that may be
Okay.
from the beginning. Jim, is that hand up from before, or is that a new request? And you're on mute, so we won't be able to tell unless you unmute yourself.
That was my initial, how do I get in? Hand.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
My new hand.
I'm not good at this, so, all right.
Well, Steve, if I may, my comment would be let's try this, and especially if Allison is willing. I wouldn't. My sense is just because you haven't received an email lately doesn't mean the problem isn't festering, and so I think it's a great idea to go back a year or two. David Proston, I think it is a full-time resident, by the way, so you could.
Okay, all right. I just don't know. No, and then,
And because I mean the mentality, it's hard to write you every month, even though the problem is bothering us, potentially daily. People aren't going to write daily.
right, and then my memory is from the hearing, whoever the manager is at the Sands of Time, she mentioned it and she said, put a sound meter at her property. And there was a woman on Locust Street that I can determine. And that's a different issue. That's not coming down into the Woods Hole Village. That's people coming out of Woods Hole, coming onto Locust Street, right by the bicycle path. And I think what she was complaining is that trucks were coming down that hill and then onto Locust Street, and that her building was shaking. And so that would probably be not early in the morning. I think that would be later in the afternoon when they're coming back from the vineyard. So we would have.
We'd have to go back. I'm not sure that it was unidirectional. I suspect
Right.
the
I don't
trucks
know.
are causing
We'll
trouble
just have-
both
we'll
ways.
just have to look and talk to them about when they think that we should be there. So,
Right, she
monitor.
may be only noticing it in one direction as opposed to the other, so we have to definitely talk with her first.
okay. Right, the next one is the number 8, noise of Bruno's trash trucks going up Woods Hole Road. We have talked to Greg Carroll, who was absolutely terrific on this, and it's important to him. And he has suggested we're all going over. He's going to come over someday when Nat is there. We were going to do it last week, but it didn't work out last week. And he's going to be there and witness his trucks going up the hill and with Nat and see about what might be able to be done if they're doing what they should be doing or if they are not doing what they should be doing. And I don't know, Nat, if you have a date that might be good for you yet.
Greg is welcome to, I mean, I don't know if I need to be there. It'll be obvious. I mean, maybe he could do his own sound meter too.
Oh, Allison was
He'll
gonna be-
understand the problem. I mean, I don't know what my role there is to point out the
You're the one that
coming
hears
here.
it firsthand, so
He'll hear it. He's not gonna miss them. I mean, I'll do my best, but I mean, for me to run out every time,
Well, actually,
he'll
We've
get the point with or without me.
we've solved your problem temporarily because our COVID-19 schedules no longer have the 5:30 freight trip from Vineyard Haven.
That's
So
what's
the-
going on.
So
Okay.
the earliest that they will be there is, I think, the 8:15. And I think, frankly, I think you would help and he would help by having a discussion between the two of you, with Allison there. She's going to be there as well to talk about it. And there's more transparency and you may give him ideas and.
Well, I'm definitely ready to talk with him about it.
Okay. All right. So why don't Allison can get some dates for next week for him to come over and then show those to you and figure out which one is best. If that's all right?
yep.
Okay.
Allison and Steve, I've always wondered, I think this is the third year you've had the 5:30 from Vineyard Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard a peep from anyone in Vineyard Haven? The 5:30 originating in Vineyard Haven.
I'm going to defer to John Cahill on that. He lives in downtown Vineyard Haven.
I do. Nat, what was your question?
I just wondered if that's a relatively new development. Your 5:30. We've had it for 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
Do you ever never heard a word from anyone having been woken up, or I'm just curious if we're overly sensitive on this side or what, because it is a new development on your side.
Yeah, I mean, well, personally, I look at it as, I do hear it, but it's a choice that I made to live where I want to live, which is downtown Vineyard Haven. So that's on a personal level, but I don't hear of anybody complaining about it beyond, and I know that, we have this special seasonal business that we make all our money in about 5-6 months. And so we tend to cooperate and work together with that realization.
I wish Falmouth could say the same.
Well, you can.
Although we do appreciate the embarkation fee.
You can. We're all living a seasonal world of revenue.
And that.
And I live about 500 yards from the boat.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Has anybody ever asked to drive in the truck or gone for a ride in the truck just to see the truck driver's point of view or the truck company's point of view? Has that been an option or has that been put out there?
It is now. Thank you.
Invitation?
There you go, Stephen. You might have the world sign up.
I mean, the places you've been talking about, the bike path, I believe is the Sands of Times, the one right on the corner there. Those are a lot of blind corners, and you have a lot of, what happens at the bike path is you have a lot of pedestrians and bike riders that feel that they have the right of way, but they don't realize that if a truck's coming down the road, your right of way might be your life, because the truck's coming right along. We try to go as courteous as possible through there, but sometimes people just cut out in front of us, and that's where all the noise, that's the Jake brakes, that's the brakes, and that's where you're gonna be powering up and powering down.
Oh, it's interesting. I think that bike path has a pedestrian light that they do have the right of way.
No, there's actually
They
2
have to-
stop signs, one on either side.
Correct. It's not a good location either for sight distances for people coming downhill. It's almost on a blind corner. So when you're coming down that corner and those lights are activated, and even just a regular vehicle has to slam on their brakes.
Right, and the bike path is the one with the stop signs, not the road. But no one seems to ever stop at the bike path stop signs. They just, I mean, I've had multiple chances where I could have been in an accident just driving a car.
No, but I think it's both. The bicyclists are told to stop, but then they push the button and then they get the right of way to cross.
Right, but they still need to look both directions, I think is what they're trying to say. Just because it's just like you hit the button doesn't mean you get to go. You still have to look, so.
Well, this might be a situation where it's more education
Right,
for
oh, absolutely.
our customers to slow down before they come down to that blind spot, so that if they have to stop, they can do so.
Whether it's truckers or car drivers,
Correct.
the local people who live here all the time, we all have to be driving a speed as we approach that hill that knows that we can stop safely.
Right.
We've got to prepare for that, all of us.
But Steve, would you be allowed to take a passenger? Would any insurance issues or anything like that? I'm a lawyer. I have to think of these things.
I will check with John in the morning and I will get back to you on that.
Okay, great. That would be a unique perspective that we don't have until you arrived today. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On this point, my other observation is, so there's obviously speeding and driver preferences and things. The age of the rig seems to be a huge factor when I look at where most of the noise is coming from. It's not by any means always the biggest truck that's causing the most noise. I've almost gotten to know some of the older cabs that are just really noisy. I don't know what to do about this. It's almost an intractable problem, but it's definitely part of the noise problem. The older the cab, the noisier it would appear to be.
Well, it's like that with
even
cars
with your
too.
your new Ford new diesel buses are so much quieter than the even smaller old school bus type buses. I'm not saying they're silent, but it'd be nice to think that someone the new cabs might come to us sooner.
Well, when you gotta think about it, it's just like your cars. The older your car, the louder it is. You look at a 70 Chevelle compared to a 90-something Impala, one's gonna be definitely a lot louder than the other one, so.
I believe
Ken.
some of that is the new emissions laws that are quieting the new trucks down. And another thing is the older trucks don't have the same muffler systems that the newer trucks have. So, you have that difference. And to replace a truck, to replace the tractor that I drive today, you're talking about $200,000. It's just not going out to the car dealership and buying a car. It's a quite an investment. And a lot of these trucking companies, when you're having 5 or 6, 7, 8, 50 trucks, like I couldn't even imagine what Peter Noonan has in trucks right now. I think it's something that we could try to work on together, but you're still going to have a difference between newer trucks and older trucks. And some of them are rental trucks. Some of them are just trying to skim by with what they have.
How often do they have to be inspected by, and who are they inspected by?
They expected once a year, and they go through a DOT inspection. So they have to be authorized to give a DOT inspection. Like John has a company come down from Bourne, I think, and they come down and do all our trucks in, I think, October.
Okay.
Well, just an observation. The problem is almost intractable, given the expense and existing fleets and so on. I hope we'll see electric trucks in our lifetimes, right, Steve?
Maybe. Isn't that Governor Baker's idea, is to have it all electric vehicles by the year 2035 or 2050?
All sales to be electric.
All sales. Oh, well. Okay.
I can only conclude that trucks in residential neighborhoods don't mix very well.
But they don't what?
mix. They don't coexist very happily.
Yes, that's what Steve
No
Tupper
people-
said. That's what he said. Yes, he's had that issue elsewhere too.
Yeah, the problem with the residential neighborhood is you still have a state highway. It's, I've run a lot of highways. There's some places are Route 9, Route 20 that are all the same. And we're all in the same boat. I think one of the problems is that everybody come accustomed to the Cape and the Islands 20 years ago as a getaway. And we thought it was great back then. It was bringing revenue in. And at some point, we crossed the line. And it's now almost trying to put the cows back into the barn after we let them out.
Well, new times require new solutions, right? I hope.
I just saw in the attendees that Michael Santoro will hopefully be rejoining us as a panelist soon. So I tried to promote him to panelist, but then he disappeared. Okay. So Allison will follow up with Greg Carroll on that and get back to Nat on
Yep.
possible times, hopefully next week. Okay. Number 9, the update on efforts to eliminate traffic backups on Woods Hole Road when the standby line at the Woods Hole terminal was closed, including discussion of whether the SSA should extend its reservation-only days at the Woods Hole terminal to September 15th. Nat asked for that additional subject to be put on. We had first put on, I proposed just our efforts to eliminate those traffic backups. And earlier today, he asked if we have already publicized the reservation-only days for the Martha's Vineyard route, and we have. That is on our website, and it was in all the publications that went out for reservations when the schedules were approved. But that doesn't mean that we cannot take measures to eliminate those traffic backups. And Allison and I have talked to Bob Davis about that, and ways that we think we might be able to do that, especially before next September when it was a problem. The first thing we are going to do is get more information. We've realized now that the Woods Hole terminal employees don't even record, because they've never had to, when they close the standby line, when they reopen it. And we checked back the terminal turnover notes for the month of September, and there is only one indication in those notes of when a standby line was closed, and that was when it was closed for good for the rest of the day. And that was at 8 o'clock at night, early on in September, just shortly after Labor Day. They aren't making notes of when they close the standby line during the day and when they reopen it. And so that's the first thing that went out. We are going to ask them to make those notes, and so that we know what the situation is, how often that happens. And when that happens, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a traffic backup, but we just have to know how often that happens. What I was surprised to see, the notes do indicate how many cars they leave behind every night, because the standby line is there and there aren't enough spaces on the boats. And I asked one time, there's like, left 8 cars behind, left 10 cars behind. And Allison says that when that happens, the customers simply go and get a room somewhere in Falmouth and stay the night and come back the next day. It seems to be an odd travel system to me, but that's the way Islanders have lived, I guess, all these years. If they
From the 9:45 p.m.
Yes.
Yes.
How often does that happen?
Not a lot, but it does happen. And a lot of times what it is we get an overabundance of people showing up with open tickets, or missed reservations, or they have a reservation that just does not work for their schedule, so they want to try to go earlier. If we know we're going to get close to not getting everybody on the boat, we will go through the line and inform people that there's a chance that they won't get on. They want to go park and then go on as a walk-on. They're more than welcome to, but a lot of people just want to try it and hope for the best. So, and then they'll be back down first thing in the morning.
That's probably not. Is that happening between November and April, for example?
No. If it does, it's because of a storm. So
Right.
that's something completely different.
And for those situations, I think, at least in my day, the Woods Hole Terminal had a list of all places, hotels and guest
Yep.
houses that they
We
give
did.
out to the customers who are stranded.
Mhm.
I think there were 2 or 3 nights last September in which they did say they left people behind. They left 8 or 10 cars. So it doesn't happen that often, but that can't be a good situation for anyone when it does. And we've
This is
also
a
talked
case
about,
where probably would have helped if there'd been reservations only, right? They would have not come
Not
down. to begin with.
necessarily.
Not really.
I think part of that problem is COVID, where people were escaping the city and coming to their summer homes on Martha's Vineyard in the Cape. It was just more traffic. There's more traffic on the vineyard now than there's ever been this time of year. And it's more traffic in Woods Hole, more traffic on the boats. So I think COVID has a lot to do with that.
I couldn't
I
believe the
support that.
October truck numbers surpassed in 2020 surpassed the October numbers for 2019. That's just a mystery to me.
I'm suggesting this, but why wouldn't the reservations only situation take care of that?
Because these people might not get the reservation and they'll still show up. So doesn't mean they're going to get on.
But if it's a weekend, they're not allowed. You're not.
People
They're
will
not allowed to
show up
travel.
even on reservation only days, trying to get a reservation. They know the policy. They still show up. They still clog the streets. We give them the number. We turn them away. They come back again, trying again. It's
If we only had reservations ever, they wouldn't be trying that. It's only because the steamship does have times it's not reservation only. But if we're reservation only, this problem would go away. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying the logic is if we had reservations only, they would not be showing up trying to get on.
well, plus with the reservation only, we still have Blue Line, which is the Islanders version of a standby line. So we're still going to have people showing up, trying to get spaces as well.
So there still
I've
is a
never heard
standby.
this.
I don't dispute that having reservations only would help that situation immensely. That's why we've implemented it on Thursdays through Mondays during the summer and those additional days.
What's the
But
blue line?
and we still have the Blue Line there. That's for residents.
What is that?
The resident standby line.
So that's actually 50% of your traffic or more probably on winter.
We allowed 15 spaces a day to go Blue Line, but it's up to the agent's discretion if they want to increase it during the course of the day.
Could these traffic situations be all blue line people lining up?
What was that?
Could the traffic situation we had in September be all blue line people?
No,
Could it?
Highly doubt it.
no.
Could be though.
I don't think so.
It could be a couple. I mean, there's going to be a few in there, but not the majority, no.
I guess it's a little disconcerting to find out about this as being a potential contributor to the problem, but never being discussed before.
I was in
Well-
that line. I
Yeah.
was waiting to get on a boat when they were turning people away, and there were a lot of out-of-state plates that were being turned away, and a lot of people also were not following the direction of the people in the booth. I mean, I saw people literally drive over the sidewalk and bypass the line and the booth trying to sneak by. So,
Okay.
I mean, you know,
And Doug, I know, Doug, we did talk about this 2 meetings ago, this exact month of September. And I think the group, what's that?
The blue line?
Well, the
I've
blue
never-
line and the whole problem
Blue
with
line's, you know.
standby.
I've never heard the expression blue line before.
That's actually, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Well, unless you qualify for the excursion program, no one does know what the Blue Line is, so.
But isn't that a third of your customers or?
No.
But those are the people that know about it.
We do not have the Blue Line when we have regular standby.
right.
We only have the Blue Line on reservation only days. And it is just a little escape valve for the residents. It's limited to 15 spaces per day. It could be expanded if they are able to process those 15 people quickly. And so there's that reason there. That's just to give the residents some more flexibility in their travel, which they need. But when I go back to, we had the discussion, this past September was a unique year with COVID. And what Steve said and John said, we had never had this problem in prior years since we started the reservation only days, Thursday through Mondays during the summer, plus a few additional days around July 4th, Memorial Day and Columbus Day. And the question is whether this is something that's going to be every year, or something that was only last year and will go away, and then the island residents can still have their standby travel, which they value and cherish greatly. Our goal, I think, our goal here is to eliminate those traffic backups. And I think we can do that while maintaining standby and changing the way our standby procedure works in an administrative way at the Woods Hole Terminal. Allison and I have talked to Bob Davis, and he doesn't want these traffic backups either, and he wants to figure out a way to correct it. Well, what we're learning, and we're learning more about it, is that they close the standby line during the day, which is what Mike Morrow and Doug Jones talked about. And then they tell everyone to come back around the same time. That is generally when they have possibly, I think, 5 lanes of staging vehicles for standby. And when they reopen it, they generally have 3 lanes open. They've already gone through a number of the standby cars that arrived before they closed it. Those reopening times could be staggered for when people come. They could be given, we talked about having people giving numbers like at a deli, could only be those people who arrive after the standby lines. We're still having lots of discussion. We're trying to get the fact information from our terminals as to how, pardon? Sorry? Okay. We're trying to get all the information and make a good decision to eliminate those traffic backups and making certain that the island residents still have the flexibility of travel. John?
Mike Santoro is trying to get in. I think he's as a participant right now.
There he is.
Steve, one correction. So because I'm reading the standby rules. So the
Yes.
reservation only periods are Friday through Monday, 4 days. They don't include Thursday. So we
Okay.
are allowing
Friday. Yes, it's
standby
Tuesday,
Monday through Thursday.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
So when Selectman Jones asked for
Thursday.
an extension through September 15th, you now have it through September 6th, and the 7th I see is also reservation only. So it was like 3 or 4 days he was asking for of additional reservation only. I mean, to me, that seems like that's practically peak season these days, through mid-September. Well, I just wanted to make the point, he wasn't asking for half a month. It's like 3 or 4 days.
No, but we had talked about that. We had already publicized all these dates already in all of our reservation forms. So the best idea is to correct the traffic situation this year, and then see if that works, and then assess the standby availability reservation only days at a later time. I think we can fix the traffic backup situation without creating more reservation only days. And trying to do that only pits island residents against Falmouth residents. If we can get both, I don't see why anyone would have an objection.
I do like the idea of you're keeping track of how many standby requests you're getting and how many you're having to
That's
turn
what we
away.
have.
Because when you say there was no problem in the previous years, how can we be sure of that?
Well, we haven't heard of it. We
Well,
aren't aware of it.
again, just because
Well-
we're bringing it to your attention this year doesn't mean it wasn't happening before.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. We just were not aware of it.
But now it's being brought to our attention, so now we're addressing it.
I think another problem with the standby in September was, I hate to bring the COVID up, but the steamship had a turnover of new employees that they were just training in the traffic booth. And the senior guys know how to rotate the cars through. The newer guys are learning the system. So it's taken them a little bit longer to process it and get the cars through. And another thing is, people just aren't listening. They're going to do what they want. And that's one of the major problems we have everywhere. They think they're special and they're just going to do what they want. If they want to show up at the steamship, they're going to show up at the steamship, no matter what you say.
But we're going to work to address it.
Well, if you can collect those numbers, you'll have a very good idea for future years, what
Correct.
parts of the year, what times of the year, there's just no chance of them getting on standby because it's so oversubscribed.
Right. We're
Just
gonna
I'll just
collect,
mention, so 3 years ago or so, Washington State Ferries went to an all reservations system, and the public, which is 10 times, they have 10 times more users, always, everything was standby. Was shocked and didn't think it was going to work out, but my understanding, the reception's been actually quite good for the very reason that you're not wasting time tooling around waiting for standby.
there are a lot of different interests here, and they all have to be considered. When we went to reservation only days, back that was after 1995, for those days, the Friday through Monday, a lot of the businesses on the island objected to that because they depended upon people making last minute plans to travel to the island. We resisted that back at that point because of the traffic impacts. We created the blue line during those days to give island residents some flexibility. We have more policies than anyone else. I mean, we tried to do a customer policy handbook, and it's over 100 pages, I think. But we're gonna
Maybe
work
another
on-
day we could hear more about the blue line, because my impression from today's conversation is it may not be limited to 15 cars a day. It sounds like it's
Correct.
kind of
It all depends. If, for example, if on a Sunday, there are island residents, and they have to be excursion? They can be preferred customers. They can be preferred customers as well, which means an island resident. If 15 people show up and they're all taken on board the boats by noon, then the terminal manager may say, okay, I'm going to let another 15 people come in. And there's no reason not to do that if you're going to be able to get them on the boats and back to the island by that time. So
Well.
there is some discretion, but the maximum number, I think, at any one time, is this fair to say, Allison, is 15?
Correct.
Okay,
Well,
But they can also turn it off at any point in time too, if.
right.
sounds like every incentive to show up and wait.
So could I ask Nathan, what's the problem with the cars?
The cars are backing up to the dome, and
in the wintertime?
emergency vehicles.
September?
No, this is summer only. We're just talking
Oh,
about.
summer? But the
through-
blue line doesn't exist in the summer, correct?
No, it does,
Yes,
during
it's a big-
reservation only days.
During reservation only. So it would be in the winter, you don't?
No, the winters. It doesn't back up in the winter, so this is summer only.
Okay.
Our goal is that you don't hear about traffic backing up to the dome due to the steamship authority.
Right.
That's
But that backing up to the dome was in September, right, Nathan?
correct.
That's right. Yeah,
I
but
think
through the
that- I
summer.
wanna go back
But
to- I
but
think we-
but through the summer.
I think we just have to be careful, and we've all said it. I don't want to keep repeating it, but I think September was an odd month, and hopefully we won't see that occur next year. And we may, but I think it's all related to what Stephen said earlier, is COVID. We see it here on the island every day.
I mean, the amount of out-of-state plates you're seeing this time of year compared to this time last year, it's amazing.
Amazing. Plus, September was our first month that us as islanders could get off the island to go to our doctor's appointments or in Falmouth and places, and also as being able to just do our shopping. So it was sort of like the relief valve to go off and go do things for the first time in a while.
I understand that September was odd. I think this next September will be odd also because of remote work. I think you're going to find on the vineyard way more people even after COVID who are going to be staying on the vineyard than you guys ever remember in the past.
You could be right.
It's already happening,
You could
yeah.
be right.
Well, hopefully this year, and if it does in the next few years, those people are set. They won't have to, come in September. They'll already be there.
Well, they're still going to want to come back and forth a lot. I just think that it may end up being, this is where my concern in September is you're going to have a lot of transportation back and forth, kind of like the summer months in September. It is the nicest time to be anywhere around the Cape. And that's the reason why I'm just concerned at this, moving the fall schedule that early into September may still be a problem. And I like Steve's idea saying we're going to check it out, but by the time you check it out next September, it'll be over.
No, actually, we're checking it out now. So our goal is to have revised policies and procedures in place by September so that
Okay.
we are doing it correctly and making certain that traffic doesn't back up. And that could be a variation of giving people numbers to come back, doing things that make better customer service. I mean, we can satisfy a lot of interest by doing things other than just extending reservation only days.
And it could be, it's going to work as well during standby days during the summer too. It's not just primarily for September. This is something we're looking at
Right.
as a global thing within the company. So
During the summer, I think it'll be useful. I think right now you won't discover much because there's just not enough traffic to be a problem, but.
Correct, but we have to get them used to putting down the information and looking at it.
I
Yeah,
like the electronic solution. We talked about that for Hyannis. I know there are problems, but I hope you could pursue that.
What we heard about Nantucket, why the deli system works so well in Nantucket. In Woods Hole, people generally come down, get in
They go home.
standby.
You told us, yeah.
No, and they stay there, which is, I'd forgotten this. Bob mentioned it to me. And they stay there until they get on the boat. So they may stay there an hour, 5 hours, whatever. On Nantucket, the old standby system was because we had so little space on Nantucket and we had the high-speed boat coming in, all the people around. The standby customers used to have to go to the Nantucket terminal, get their cars there, get their in standby line. And if they didn't get on that boat, they had to leave and then come back for the next boat. So they just couldn't stay at the terminal for an hour or two. They would have to physically drive away and then drive back. And if they didn't show up for the next boat, they would lose their place in standby line. So that way, the deli counter system was a far better system for them because they could simply call in now and get a standby number. But here we have a different situation where in Woods Hole, they just stay in line generally until they're put on the boat. So we're looking at all the situation. It's the end of January. We're going to get hopefully some new procedures in place to improve that standby procedure and make it more customer friendly and less traffic issues. That's our goal. Update on the possible implementation of a noise monitoring program. I think we've addressed that with what Allison and we're going to be doing, going out to the neighbors. Is that all right with that?
Yep.
Review of findings of SSA traffic share in Woods Hole Road in September based upon Cape Cod Commission and SSA data sets. Nat asked this to be placed on the agenda.
Well, we spoke about this briefly with, sorry, I've forgotten the Cape Cod Commission with, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name.
Steve Tupper.
Steve Tupper, huh? And I did share this with him. Can you see this? Yeah, okay. So I was just interested in what is the share of the steamship authority related vehicles on Woods Hole Road. And again, this is just south of Quistit Lights. And it really, one answer is it's really highly dependent on the day of the week. So blue here is steamship. And these are actually the exact number of trucks. It's a little tricky with the trucks to correlate because of different classification of lengths.
These are from the numbers that Steve presented.
These are from the numbers Steve presented and from the numbers that the steamship gave me from vehicles actually carried. Those are the numbers we're most confident.
I was going to say, because, well, from Steve's counts, the Cape Cod Commission's counts, they won't be able to determine where those trucks were going. They just get a hard volume and classification. So that's what I was wondering.
Correct.
So
that's the total is 41 plus 55. These are large trucks. So the total crossing that section of the road was 96 trucks. And we counted 55. We found 55 trucks had been carried that day on the steamship. Highly dependent on the day of the week. Sunday, not a big truck day. Steve can vouch for that. And generally not a big truck day, right? Monday, it starts the steamship share is creeping up. And then oddly, Tuesday is a big day, it would seem, or a slow day in Woods Hole for trucks. Some of these trucks, by the way, don't make it all the way into the Falmouth. The non-steamship trucks don't make it all the way into Woods Hole. They're turning off onto the Quistit campus, which is probably a good thing if you live, for those of us who live past Quissit campus. So that was the trucks definition. I can just run through if folks are interested for cars. The numbers are obviously much bigger. It's about a third of the cars of all cars on Woods Hole Road, at least on this particular Saturday, were going to or from the vineyard. This actually is more consistent from day to day. Sunday, about a third. Again, actually, this is quite consistent.
Now, may I ask,
Yep.
a truck, what are you considering a truck?
Yeah, let me show you the
So
definition. So
by-
that was one of the challenges in doing this.
By
I'll just,
axle, and then they go by Federal Highway Administration has 13 classifications. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how you
sure.
broke this
Yeah, I'll
down
give
as
that
well.
to you in a second. Let me just, and then I was just going to do buses. Buses are obviously a big component of most of the buses on Woods Hole Road are.
Yeah,
steamship
buses aren't
related.
considered heavy vehicles though. Or
No, this is,
they're classified on their own.
yeah, these were broken out. The buses were specifically identified in both in the Cape Cod Commission and the steamship reports. But yeah, I mean, this doesn't surprise any of us given the shuttle service of the steamship. And then there are just fewer buses. Well, somewhat fewer, maybe not any fewer on weekdays. Then Mike asked about the definition. So these were the categories I used. And I tried to ground truth this. So the steamship has a 35-foot and above set of categories. And the Cape Cod Commission had these categories. And I was looking at, I know the early morning trucks pretty well. And that helped me to correlate the different categories. So I did my best. I mean, if you included trucks that are more than 20 feet, but less than 35, this would look different. But I was interested in the big trucks. So happy to share this, but I thought it'd be worth, I mean, just so we're not all guessing. So we have some sense of who's traveling on Woods Hole Road. That was my only purpose. And, if we came back
Can you bring us back to the, our people?
Right.
No, I think that puts our operations in context, Nat. But I'm curious. There are some things, actually, I find it less for the percentage of cars that are steamship related than I would have expected. Because when you think of it, the only non-steamship vehicles going down there are related specifically to what's in that specific area, where the ones that continue onto the vineyard are for 6 separate towns. And I'm just curious, I think those proportions that you have would be the same, if not greater, for any other state highway in Massachusetts for the last 4 miles of the highway before it goes on into another town. Naturally, that highway at that point would be used primarily by vehicles going beyond the town's limit to another town, the same way that Woods Hole Road has more cars going and trucks going to the 6 towns of Martha's Vineyard than just the one village in Woods Hole in the town of Falmouth. And it is what it is, but for the purposes of us, puts it into context so that we know that we do have an obligation to try to minimize the noise and the traffic that we're causing. But I don't see it as the numbers by themselves as giving an indication that there is something wrong with the situation.
No, I didn't mean to suggest that. I just thought we should try to understand what the share is on Woods Hole Road. I'm not sure I fully understood. So there are 6 towns beyond Woods Hole that won't argue with that, but obviously they're not coming and going daily. So it seems like I don't quite understand the analogy.
No. I mean, there's 6 towns on the island. You have Tisbury, Edgartown, West Tisbury.
Yeah, but thank God those cars aren't coming and going through Woods Hole daily. The same cars aren't. The same cars aren't, is what I meant. These aren't
but that's who
commuters
we
here.
represent. All the cars that go from those towns to Woods Hole on this highway are similar to towns that go from the last 4 miles of the Southeast Expressway to all the towns.
Oh, you're saying we should expect this? Okay.
To some extent. But another aspect, what's interesting, and I don't mean to say but another perspective, because we can only carry so many vehicles per trip, and those are spaced out throughout the day, that means that when there are significant backups, we aren't the generator of those rush hour backups that you get in other towns from 4 to 6 in the afternoon, or from 7 to 9 in the morning when everyone is going. We can only
Wait a
carry,
minute.
we
But
can only carry.
But we do get the pulses. We get read the letters. This is what people complain about. We get the
No.
pulses of suddenly 50 vehicles, right?
Right, and those, and I no, and that I was going to. You get those pulses, and that's what we have to work on. But as far as really the rush hour stuff, the rush hour is attributable to factors in addition to the Steamship Authority, where we actually have our regulator of traffic throughout the day, because we only carry so many vehicles per trip. The pulses are when they come off the boat and they all go in one line. I don't think it's as much an issue going down to Woods Hole, because people arrive at the terminal or spaced out. It's when we have to instruct our customers to be more courteous when they leave, to let people enter traffic. And we also have to space out our arrivals at Woods Hole so that we don't get 60 cars going off one boat and then immediately another 40 cars going off another boat. And I know that's been a challenge in the past for us to do.
Well, my main interest was the trucks, which causes the noise.
Okay.
The problem with that truck is anything over, I think it's 20 feet is considered a truck on steamship reservations. So if you have a box van or a van that's over 20 feet, that's considered a truck. So it's hard to.
Yeah, these numbers were, I did look at that. See, these were specific. The steamship also keeps close track of every 5-foot interval, I believe, or 5 or 6 foot interval. And these were only over 35 feet. But you're right. I mean, the numbers would have been much bigger if we'd done 20 and above. I mean, there's 600, in that case, there are 600 trucks a day that come and go from the vineyard in the summer.
Steve, we had given Nat information as to whether
Steve probably
it's a
hasn't seen that,
3-space
yeah.
truck, a 3-space truck, a 4-space truck.
By
or a
space,
5
yeah, right.
By space. And so I assume you only put down, I don't know whether it's 3-space trucks and higher or 2-space trucks and higher. I'm not
Well, it
sure.
was whatever is above 35 foot. I was again trying to match the Cape Cod Commission. Huh?
Okay. All right,
So
thank
he's
you, Nat.
putting the 2 spaces for the
that's a
vans
3-space.
that Steve talked about and up.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is also was asked by a proposal to approach MassDOT to provide additional no speeding or similar signs on Woods. Nat, you want to start that one?
Well, I have seen signs. One does see signs like this. Reduce speed in order to reduce noise. I can sit around. There's a sign down the street that looks not on Woods Hole Road that looks like that, and I think generally they're not. I would say they're not enough speed signs on Woods Hole Road. I think there are a
Probably
total of
because
6.
they're not warranted. So in order to erect a sign, you have to follow what's called the manual on uniform traffic control devices. You're talking about lane stripings. You're talking about work zone construction management setups, stop signs, speed limit signs, and traffic signals. So there are warrant analysis that there are thresholds that need to be met that would warrant that sign to be posted. So, if I would consider, run the analysis on those. But again, I mean, has there actually been an identified problem where these signs should be posted? I mean, is there an actual, I still haven't seen anything that says that there's still an actual speed issue on the road. You'd have to, the state doesn't permit anybody to just post a sign because they feel that there's an issue. I mean, these things have to go through a pretty extensive analysis in order to be warranted.
So my thinking, I was less interested in trying to get the speeds lower, is just to make sure that drivers, especially if they're coming down the first time, know exactly what the speed limit is at all times. And I think generally the more speed signs, the clearer it is and the better.
If they're
I would
following-
start with
We did, and
enforcement first.
I would just say, Mike, we did, this may have been before can't remember when we looked at these numbers from the counter when the police department in Falmouth gave us the numbers, and there were actually
That
were
was from,
several.
like, May.
Yeah, you remember that? Okay. Remember there were plenty of overspeed observations, right? Counts.
Well, I believe the 85th percentile was only 42 miles per hour off the top of my head. So, I mean,
We have to go
again,
back, but
you know,
not everyone is
road-
not everyone is under the speed limit, though. I think you'd agree.
MassDOT when roadways are constructed, they're designed to be 5 miles per hour posted higher than the actual posted speed limit. So if the posted speed limit is 40 or 45 miles an hour, that roadway is actually designed to be 45 or 50 miles per hour. So again, like, you
Well,
need
that's
to be able. It's one day.
noise
It's
is
from
what-
one day, and the police department, they didn't even know which directions the volumes were going in. So any traffic professional would automatically exclude and throw that data out, because what are we looking at?
Well, again, I'm not.
The
I'm
Cape
less
Cod
interested
Commission,
in-
the Cape
in-
Cod Commission can assist you guys in running those analyses with the MUTCDs.
Uh-huh. Well, again, I'm less interested in the formal following the rules or not following rules. I think the more
Well, in order to get that done, you have to follow the rules, though. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well-
Could I ask something here? Mike, you mentioned a manual that none of us knows about except professionals like you. Is it possible for you to give that manual, and I can look at it and also have Nat look at it? We can just see what would be required for that.
Well,
No,
Cape
I
Cod
mean, no,
Commission-
I mean, that would be, no, I wouldn't be willing to do that. I mean, again, it's
Okay.
not my job Woods Hole is not my jurisdiction. You have the Cape Cod Commission. The town of Falmouth has a planning department, correct? Why is there nobody from the planning department? Do you have a town planner here? There's not one person from this department on this group or has attended. Again, Steve Tupper was very clear the last time that these things go through a process. Until that goes through the process, you can't go out there and start doing data collection and start presenting it as fact. You just
Okay.
can't.
That's fair enough. It's not your jurisdiction, so.
Can I just bring up a point, Nate? And as chairman of the Roads and Byways in Oak Bluffs, I learned a big lesson. Everybody wants to do signs, and then you start putting them up and it changes the whole character of the neighborhood. And you've got a nice rural road there. I don't know how far you want to go with signage, but that's something the neighbors should be involved in, also the people who live in that area. How much signage do you want? Because then it starts looking like it is a state highway, but how far do you want to go?
Can I just say something really simple and stupid, which you're probably all gonna laugh at, but how many of us actually use our GPS when we go places, even if we already know where we're going? Majority of us do. And I'd say 90% to 100% of those GPS units tells you the speed already on those units, and it'll tell you when you're speeding. And I know myself, I ignore it half the time. Yes, I'm guilty for speeding, but
Never on Woods Hole Road.
never on Woods Hole Road. Never.
Never going by Nat's house.
But that's
Like
what I
you
mean.
told us last time that there aren't any police, so why would anyone follow the rules?
No,
You know, I
that's-
just want to build off what Mike Moreau said before, Nate, is I think what you should do is take that energy and direct it to the Cape Cod Commission and the Falmouth Town Planners, because those guys are pros and they'll be able to give you those answers much more than this group can. There's a whole set of criteria that you have to follow, and our criteria on the vineyard, it will be different than what you have over there in Falmouth. So Mike's right on the money, and I'd encourage you to go back to Falmouth.
And actually, that's consistent with what Steve Tupper said at the last meeting, that
Right.
these requests have to come from the DPWs.
Now, what's the purpose of this committee? And this is really frustrating to hear this saying, the Steamship Authority formed this committee to try to resolve these issues, not to have Nat and I express concerns and have everyone else say, you guys, shut up, go back to your coming down. I mean, it's really disturbing to hear this. I thought we were going to work together, listen to each other, and try to come up with ideas, as opposed to saying, no, no, no. It's all we're hearing right now is, the trucks aren't loud enough. I'm really discouraged by these past two meetings.
It has nothing
think
to do
I have
with
exact
no.
opposite
All due
feeling, Doug.
respect,
Can I
all
just
due respect,
chime in?
Doug, we've had a lot of meetings and we've got a lot, I
Yeah.
feel we've got a lot done and you've missed some meetings too that we've got.
And I think you're misunderstanding what we're saying.
I'm here to work things out.
What we're saying is that, and what Mike is saying, is that if we want signs on Woods Hole Road, that there is a procedure to get signs on Woods Hole Road. And that the procedure that is to be done is it has to come from the town of Falmouth as a request to MassDOT. And MassDOT with the Cape Cod Commission will evaluate those based upon standards that they have.
If
And
this committee made the request to the town of Falmouth, it would go so much farther. It would go better for the town. It would be better for the Steamship Authority. If a recommendation from this committee was, we would like to do this, that would put real teeth to it, and that would make me feel much better. But most of what's happening, these committees saying, no, you guys, no, you're wrong to be concerned about it.
No one's saying that.
That's
No
not
one's
what
saying
we're
that.
saying, but
Say
the
that.
Cape Cod
Yep.
Commission is going
Not
to,
at all.
they need.
I don't know how you get
to
that
be buy-in
perception.
as well.
Mike just
In
said it's
order
not
to
his
proceed.
business. It's not, why should we be doing this?
no,
No, it's just
No,
people are gonna say, why is the transportation program manager from the Martha's Vineyard Commission running a warrant analysis on Woods
yeah.
Hole and Falmouth? Why did you guys not contact the Cape Cod Commission? Why is nobody from the planning department in Falmouth involved with these? Like, that's just what nobody's saying no.
If the problem was reversed, you'd be saying the same to us. You
But
got
I
to
think-
contact the
but-
Martha's Vineyard Commission. It's
but
not
I
a
think-
question of trying to say no to you. We're trying to help you get to your end result. And I can't help you with that end
Our
result.
result it should be our end result, not my end result. That's what's frustrating.
But I'm here. And so is
Correct.
Mike, and so is Michael and Stephen, and we're here every
have a
time.
history. Doug, we aren't saying that if the town of Falmouth decides that it wants to go to MassDOT to do this, that we will not support that. We aren't saying that at all. In fact, I think the Steamship Authority has been on record for that bicycle crossing north of Jones Road. That once the town of Falmouth wanted to request that MassDOT put another sign there, and I haven't been there for a while, I don't even know if it's up, that they came to the Steamship Authority in order to get the Steamship Authority support for the town's request to put up a bicycle crossing there above Jones Road. I can see it physically
Well,
where it is.
Steve, that's just the mechanism I was hoping that we might deploy here. State agency, quasi-public approaching DOT on, as a peer.
But
And-
that was the town's
That's-
request that we then supported. And I think what you heard Mike Santoro say is that if this group were to come out and say, do this, and the neighbors were against it, then we would be interfering with just look at the proper way of doing it. That's all we're saying. And the proper way of doing it is for the town do you want to ask the town planner to come in?
That's what I was gonna say. We can construct a letter from this group requesting that the town of Falmouth or the town planner, highway superintendent, what have you, reach out to Steve Tupper at the Cape Cod Commission and see what they can do as far as whether it be an inventory of signage along the roadway, whether it look for additional signage on the roadway.
6 signs, I've counted them. I just think it would be helpful if there were more signs. I don't understand the resistance. I totally don't get the aesthetics.
There's a
Believe me.
there's a process. That's why.
Well, that would,
I'm trying to help you through that process,
Right.
but
I apologize, Mike. I didn't understand that's what you were suggesting.
Okay. All right. That's why we're having these conversations, so that we understand that. So the quick thing is, for the next meeting, do you want to invite, I don't know who from your planning department might be willing to come, or you might think appropriate to talk about this?
Well, right now we actually have a transportation management committee. And it might be appropriate to see if we can get a representative from them to come to this meeting so that we can express these concerns to them and then have them take it on with the town planner and the DOT.
Does that make sense to everyone?
Sure.
if that's the only way to do it. I
Okay, great. Okay,
hoping
we
we could
got
just
there. I
contact
don't care.
DOT, but all right.
You know, sausage isn't always pretty in the making, but that's good. Okay. All right. Okay, establishing the time and date. I think the important thing for the next meeting, not only for the Transportation Committee representative, but also to give a report on what will be Allison's achievements in terms of talking and doing the, going out to the neighbors. So my sense is that it would be better if she were to be given the entire month of February to do that, and we schedule this for the first week or so in March. Except that John Cahill has first Wednesday and third Wednesday for Dukes County, so that would be, we would be then free on March 10th at 4 o'clock.
Fine with me.
10th, you said?
March 10th.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Works for me.
I'm sorry, Steve, I got this mixed up. The other group, we do 4:30, correct?
Correct.
Sorry.
Yep. That's for Keith.
So we're gonna say the 10th at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock, March 10th.
Yeah.
And we will, and Allison will be doing all the neighbors. We'll also be doing Greg Carroll. And there are other things in there that I have momentarily forgotten because I'm getting too old. But actually that date will be also tentative. I assume that hopefully, Doug, will you take charge of inviting the Transportation Committee representative?
I'm sending an email to Julian right now.
Okay. Great.
I got a quick question for Mike Morrow. Would it be helpful to get somebody from Cape Cod Commission at that same meeting because they usually work hand in hand?
Yeah, I can reach out to Steve and see if either he can attend or somebody on his staff can.
I don't know if Doug Jones, do you agree? It might be helpful.
Yep, I think anything the Cape Cod Commission can do to help us with that would be great.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Mike, why don't I get Bob Davis to ask Steve Tupper? Because
Okay.
Let's do that. We'll keep you two separate for that.
That works.
Okay. All right. The only attendees are Steamship, Unknown Steamship, and Kate. Do either of you want to say anything? Then I will entertain a motion unless anyone else has any other subjects.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
second.
Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, yes.
Mr. Jones,
Jones, yes.
Mr. Morrow,
Morrow, yes.
Mr. Trumbull,
Yes.
and Mr. Arujo.
Yes, sir.
There is one chat I haven't, oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, Kay, the same, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Santoro,
Have a
aye.
good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh,
Santoro.
I missed you because you were here at the beginning. I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay,
Hey,
no
Michael.
worries.
I'm not good at this, but
Bye,
I'm
Doug.
not getting
Bye,
any better
Allison.
either. Okay, thanks.
Take care, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Be safe.
Thank you.